Hi, I'm Alex James, Chief Scientist and SVP of AI at Dataminr. I'll tell you a little bit about Dataminr and then I'll just get into what I think are some pretty good tips to succeed in machine learning and AI. In general, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. So Dataminr is a late stage startup. We are a little bit over 600 employees. What we do is we monitor public data sources. We try to find important events in those public data sources, and then we send out alerts to our customers about those events. We have thousands and thousands of data sources that range from social media to sensor data to audio, image, video, multiple languages, multiple formats. And the events range from small traffic accidents to large-scale disasters, including something like COVID-19. So we're constantly sending out alerts to many entities. The UN is one of them, and they rely on a lot of the information that we provide to keep UN personnel safe and for peacekeeping and other purposes. So, as you can imagine, we process a lot of data, and for each of these pieces of information coming in, we have to determine whether it's an event or not. If it was an event, then where did it happen, and exactly what the event was, and then sending it to the right entity or the right individual within the organization. So that's roughly what we do, and so obviously we're very involved in COVID, and we've been very active in monitoring the situation worldwide, and it's been really impactful to that, and I understand that we're all going through difficult times in dealing with that situation. But I want to now talk a little bit about what I've done over the last few years, and then about machine learning and AI in general, and some of the things that I think are critical in succeeding. So I did my PhD many years ago, and I've had the fortune of having worked at a bunch of large companies, small companies, research institutes, startups across multiple industries. So one thing that I would say to young researchers that are just starting, or data scientists or engineers, is don't be afraid of taking a non-traditional path to your career, as long as what you're doing matters and you feel like you're having an impact and you're doing something important. And so following up on that, one of the things that I think is really critical in any AI project is having a human focused. And by that mean is, number one, I'm going to go over roughly 6 or 7 tips of things that I think are important. So number one, think about the problem that you're trying to solve. Is the problem important? So if you say you join a company as the first data scientist, you don't know what to work on, or somebody tells you, really think hard about the problem that you're working on and the impact of that problem and solving that problem. So are you solving the right problem even when somebody tells you this is the problem that I need to solve? When you dig deeper, you'll find often that there may be subtleties within that particular domain, and there may be other things that you're overlooking. So you really have to think about the problem that you're working. Is it the right one? Are you applying your skills to the right problem? The second one is, who are the users of whatever it is that you're doing? So if you're doing something with a product that already exists, understanding who those users are, how they use a product, their context, that includes the cultural context, the social context in which they use it, what do they actually do with it, is really, really critical, because understanding that will help you have better insights into how the work you do is going to have an impact and make decisions that will benefit those users of the product that you're building or that you're working on. So problem, users, and impact. The third one, which is related, is the data. What is the data that you have to work on this problem? And again, if you're working on an existing product, what data are you collecting or can be collected? What data has been collected? And what data is not being collected? Oftentimes the data that's not being collected is the most important, and it's often overlooked by many scientists. So pay a lot of attention to the data, pay attention to the labels. What kind of labeling do you need? What's a good balance in terms of the data set, making sure that it's not biased, that you have enough data for the different classes that you're trying to distinguish, if it's a classification problem. And keep an eye out again for the actual use case, and try to understand, if you put that out in the real world, does the data that you have actually match that distribution? Does it look like what you might see in the real world? If your data is not real data to begin with, and there are many ways of collecting data, right? So don't get stuck on the data. Be creative in data collection, but keep in mind exactly how it's going to be used. The next point has to do with what I call the knowledge gap, and that is whatever organization you're in, you might come in as the expert, or maybe as the non-expert if you're more junior and you're starting out. And understanding what other people know and what they don't know about AI and about the work that you're going to do is really important, because the more you understand where the gap is in what you don't know and what other people don't know, the better you are at communicating. And a big part of being a data scientist, or a scientist in general, or an AI practitioner, is communicating what you're doing and communicating those results to the stakeholders, which, in a company or in a non-for-profit will be whoever's building the product, who's going to be using it, the community in which it's going to be used. So everything links back to what I said earlier. So understanding that those gaps in knowledge are really important, so that when you present your work or your ideas, you do it at the right level for your audience. So keep that in mind. We're very good often at running experiments and coming up with metrics of when an algorithm or a model works well. That's not the same as being able to properly convey to an executive or somebody running a community center how that app or that functionality that you're building into something is going to actually work. So keep that in mind. The next one has to do with strategy. Understanding the business strategy, and again, if it's a non-for-profit, what is the strategy in the non-for-profit? What is the real goal? What is it that the company or the non-for-profit or the school or the project that you're working on, what is it that they actually want to do? Understanding that will help you be better at plugging in your solution and understanding how to tweak things so that they are aligned with that strategy. So that's pretty important. The next one is more technical, and it just has to do with the approach. Some people assume that you should use this family of algorithms or these family of models or this technique or that technique. Always start with a fresh mind, and of course see what other people have done to solve similar problems, but take a really close look at the approach and pay attention to the constraints in terms of data, computation, costs, efficiency, performance. There are many of these things that you need to take into account. And finally, I would say experiment. Do a lot of trial and error. Make sure you have enough data to run your experiments before you release anything. But keep in mind that the work doesn't stop there. You don't build a model and then release it and you're done. A lot of the work that you do in AI has real impact in the world, and so you need to take that work, do a lot of testing before you run it, and try to think of all the scenarios in which it's going to be used and how it's going to be used. And once it's launched, monitor how it's performing so you can make adjustments and make sure that the models learn from that feedback, and you're constantly updating your labels. So your work doesn't stop when you ship the model. It really has to continue and go on beyond that. So those are the main tips that I have for all of you. Keep up to date on research, the state of the art, see what companies are doing, go to events like this one. And to close off, I would say that in times like these have made me realize something that I've known all along, that we have huge opportunities to have an impact on the world. And when there's so much data around the world in so many industries, there are so many opportunities for us to do things and to improve and have positive impact on society and on everyone. And so as engineers, as scientists, we really have a lot of power to change things and to improve them. So keep that in mind and try to do things with a purpose, and and also make sure that you have fun while you're doing this. Thank you. Really appreciate it.